Hi everyone. I'm just about to start a figure painting video. So before I actually start painting, I thought I'd just run you through my little painting setup. Fairly simple, I think. But one of the most important things, perhaps, for painting figures particularly, is a wet palette. The wet palette is designed to stop your paints drying out so that you can continue to use them over an extended period of time. A lot of people use these little plastic things, but as you can see they can get quite messy, and in some weather conditions the paint dries really quickly on here, and also you've got limited sort of space to mix paints if you need to and create different shades from the colours. So I just mentioned the wet palette, I think, is, for figure painting particularly, is one of the most important things on the table here. This one is, I don't know if you can see the logo, is from Hobby Zone, who are the manufacturers of the sort of MDF snap together storage units for your desk. I've had this one for a while. As you can see, it's a bit beaten up. I have another one from Green Stuff World, which is bigger than this, but I quite like this size. Doesn't take up too much room. Obviously it's got a lid, so that in between painting sessions you can keep your paint in here and put the lid on and they will stay moist and workable. While I'm painting now, I don't really use the lid. So right inside, we've got the sponge. Now I've got two sponges in mine. As you can see, they're a bit dirty through paint leaking. This is the sponge that came with the wet palette, which is quite thick. But what I've found is it absorbs water, but it lets water through to the bottom quite quickly. So things tend to dry out quite quickly. When I bought my Green Stuff World wet palette, it came with this type of sponge, which is a lot thinner, and it's a different material. This original sponge is more like a cellular plastic type sponge, whereas this, I can't really describe this, but it's a bit strange. But it seems it absorbs water and keeps it better than the original sponge. So when I'm getting ready, obviously the other thing I have is water. I've got this little container with a spray top. I soak the bottom sponge, and I mean really soak it. This is kind of pre-soaked already, to get as much water in that bottom layer as I can. As you can see, the water is there. To kind of fill this sponge with water so that it doesn't dry out very quickly. And then with this secondary sponge, that sits on top, and because the bottom sponge is saturated, this sponge needs a little bit of water perhaps, but it always stays damp because it's sucking up the water from below, and obviously the one below is not the first contact to the air, so it takes longer to dry out. And this one maintains its dampness because it sucks up from below. And you want to get it so the water is just sort of showing through when you depress it. And you can see it changing colour slightly on the white bits. Sorry, this one's a bit messy because I've had it for a while now, and occasionally paint does go through the top layer that you'll be painting from. So as you can see, that's quite damp. So that's the first thing. You don't apply the paint to the sponge, obviously. Again, Hobby Zone supply these, I think it's like parchment paper or baking paper, pre-cut sheets which fit the wet palette. and it's just a case of putting that onto the top of the sponge, and then that's where your paint will sit. As you can see, the water is sort of sucking that down. You do get curls, so you have to spend a couple of minutes just making sure it sits down flat, and it will wrinkle as well, so it's not completely flat, but it's not wet on the top. It's kind of cold from the water below, but as you can see, the water below has sucked it down. And then obviously this is where you put your paint, and because this is slightly damp, this piece of paper, it keeps your paint moist for an extended period of time. I know I may be saying things that you already know, but I just thought I'd go through the complete process. So that's the wet palette. As I say, there are hundreds of these available, but I prefer this size. It's quite a nice size for your desk and doesn't take up too much room. So that's that. Next, holding your figure. I've done a video on this, which is on the YouTube channel. It's just a little figure holder that I use. I found this on Cults 3D, I think, which was a free download for 3D printing. And I used a FDM printer to print this. And basically it's a little hollow cylinder which fits really nicely in your hand. You can see the contour of your top finger there, and you can quite easily rotate it as well. And I think this is one of the best ones I've come across. I've bought commercial ones before and they're not quite comfortable. This comes in a couple of options. When you download the 3D files, there is a hollow one and there's also a solid one with a slight recess in the top, which you can put a magnet into. So if you're painting like Warhammer figures with a base, you can put a magnet on the base, a magnet in your holder, and that will snap lock and stay there. With this option, I bought some cheap champagne corks from eBay. Painting my fingers already. Which I had to trim down the bottom to fit, but that basically snugly fits in there tight. And then I super glued some white tack to the top. So when I put a figure on this, which I will drill a hole in the bottom of one of its feet and insert a wire, super glue a little paper clip I use, which then presses into the cork. The white tack is slightly tacky, and when you push the feet down into that, it grips it so that the figure doesn't rotate on the wire. I'll show you that here. So this is the figure I'm about to paint, and as you can see, I've got a wire in the bottom of the foot, and then you can push that into the cork, get it slightly into the white tack, and the figure, it will move if you push it, but it won't move while you're painting. As I say, this little shape, this sort of form of this painting handle, I find really nice to hold. It doesn't cramp your fingers, and as you can see, you can twist it quite easily in your hand when you're painting. So that's that. As I say, that's just a 3D printed thing with a champagne cork. The other thing, I suppose, which is important, is water. This bottle I've showed just now I used to fill the wet palette. Excuse me. And when I am painting, I will add a bit of water just to allow me to mix paints if I need to. And the other thing is a container of clean water for washing your brushes. It's an old jam jar, but clean water is essential when you're going between different colours. Different tones, it's probably not quite so essential, but definitely different colours. So if you're going from a white to a black, you want to clean your brush, and I usually use a bit of tape, a little bit of kitchen towel under my wet palette, just slightly, so you can wash your brush and then you can wipe it slightly drier on the kitchen towel. Brushes, another important aspect of figure painting. I like these Series 99 from Rosemary & Co, which are a sable brush. I think they're an equivalent quality to perhaps like Winsor & Newton Series 7s, but they're a lot cheaper. They're probably half the price. I get mine on eBay from a company in the UK. Again, I'm sorry I can't help in other countries other than the UK, but I really like these. You may have your own preferences, but this is mine. For figure painting, I've got a size 0, a size 1, and for really tiny details, a 2-0. These are long handled, which I find easier to hold, but they also do a Series 99 miniature brush, which is, as you can see, is a shorter handle, but it's still a sable brush. It's still the same brush as this one. It's just that I find the longer handle easier to paint with. I just find sometimes it's not quite sitting up. I don't know why, but it just because it fits in your hand, but I just find it easier for the longer ones. So I can thoroughly recommend these. If you will get some disparities in quality between different brushes that you buy, but if you get a good one, it will last you a while if you look after it. In terms of looking after it, it's handy to get some paintbrush cleaning soap, which when you've finished, you can just form a little lather with some clean water and get the paint. The paint will come out of the brush right to the tip, to the bottom of the, I can't remember what that bit's called, but you know what I mean. And once you finish painting, if you just give it a quick coat, form a tip on it on your finger, that will keep the brush nice and pointy for your next painting session. So that's, again, an important thing, is to clean your brushes when you finish the painting session. Right, so that's that. I suppose the other important thing is paint. I really like the AK 3rd Gen series of paints for brush painting. And I also like these sets that they do, which come in little boxes like this with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colours. And for this flesh and skin set, you've got 6 colours ranging from a dark reddy purple through to a highlight colour. So basically in here you get a base colour, shadow colours and highlights. And I think this end colour is sort of darker, but even though anyway, you get 6 paints for flesh and skin, and I really like the colours that these produce. Although you get 6, I only use those 4 for figure painting. I find that I can get a nice base coverage, I can get a nice shadow effect with this shadow flesh, and I can get increasingly highlights by mixing the light flesh into the base flesh several times, and then starting to mix the highlight into the light flesh and base flesh mix several times again, and you can create nice shadows and highlights with those 4 colours. Obviously, being a military theme, AK also do uniform painting sets. This one's for field grey uniforms, which the figure I'll be painting will be in. And in this set again you get 6 paints, but you get 3 paints for a green variant of the German field grey uniform, and you get 3 paints for the grey variant of the German field grey uniform. For this particular figure I'll be using the grey ones, and on the back there's a little handy sort of shows you which colour to use for the shadow, the base and the highlights. I don't use each colour and then move on to the next. I will always mix the lighter colour into the darker one until I'm happy, and then mix the highlight colour into that mix to achieve what I want to achieve. So basically that's the kit that I use for figure painting, so I just thought I'd run that through with you. I'm a bit of a I get in a zone with figure painting and just crack on with it, but I will try and remember to stop every now and again just to explain what I've been doing. I will film everything, And if I don't stop, perhaps I'll do a little voiceover at certain parts just to say and explain what I've been doing. But the basic process will be a base colour to which I will add shadows, and then I will highlight that until the effect that I want is achieved. And then finally I will paint details, such as insignia, any other uniform details or details that the figure has on it. I will start with the face first, face and hands, and then move to the head, hats, hair, and then we'll go down the figure, uniform, to boots. Okay, I'll crack on with it, and as I say, I'll try and stop the video and explain every now and again, but if I don't, I'll either put some text on the screen or I'll do a bit of voiceover to explain what I've been doing.